Hello everyone, it's Kim here, and it's the last few days of probably the heat of summer and a bit of a blast, but it's so hot. It's afternoon time. The dogs are whacked. They're lying behind me, but I thought I'd stop for a cup of herb tea, and it is some herb tea. Some herbs that I collected this morning. I'll pop a picture up of that. So it was some hawthorn berries that were ready, some yarrow, which is really coming out beautifully now up on the downs, a little last bit of St John's wort, and then I picked a little piece of lemon verbena from the garden, and that's all it is, a handful, literally the cup of your handful. Pop that in a teapot, put some hot water on and leave it for 5 minutes, and then strain and drink it. And if you haven't got a teapot, it's really useful to know that if you just have a mug and you put your herbs in there and then put a saucer or a little plate on top, because what you're wanting often from the herbs is all the volatile oils, which are so beneficial. That's where a lot of the beneficial medicinal properties are, to be absorbed back down into the water. So if you just have a lid on it, and then when you take it off and you come to drink it, all that goodness will be retained in there. And whilst I'm having my cup of tea, I thought I'd have a little ponder really about the state of medicine. I think it's quite useful for us to at times be a bit more reflective, because I think in our very busy world we often get in a panic about our health, and it's often when we're only very ill and come into have the need of medicinal services or a therapist, and then maybe we're a bit unprepared or haven't thought things through, unless we've had other experiences of ourselves or family members. So I was thinking about when I started looking into herbs. I was secondary school. That's a long time ago now for me. I got interested in herbs, and I started to read about how, put the herb of your choice in. Nettles used to be used for, chamomile used to be used for, and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, if it used to be used for, what does that mean for now? What has changed? And I guess, giving my age away, from the 1980s or up to this day, I've witnessed quite a lot of things change within the medical narrative. Now, we always have blind spots to our current era. I would suggest that we think ours is the most advanced. Everyone else's ideas were outdated or stupid. But if we just sort of shake that notion up a bit, and I would suggest that my thoughts are that the human body actually doesn't change much. We haven't evolved back from, thousands of years back from this human Homo sapien body and its functions, its cellular functions, our emotional functions, our life cycle, from the moment of our conception to our dying. That hasn't changed. What does change, of course, is social perceptions. Our technologies change, the ruling ideas of the era change. So let's just think of consensus for the moment. It was the consensus that for hundreds of years that bloodletting was the most brilliant thing. That was practiced by a lot of physicians throughout the centuries. I think it was King George the third on his deathbed. He was bled for like 4 days until he just begged them to stop. He said, I'm a dying man, basically, and I don't need to be bloodlet. I just need to be left in a comfortable, peaceable state. So it took hundreds. It was only sort of in the recent 1800s that notion that bloodletting for everything was a good idea. And I expect you can think of the tropes that get rolled out now about certain medical interventions, that they're the best invention ever, they're safe and effective, etc., etc. If I could live to another 100 years, which I won't, because our bodies are limited, I wouldn't want to live forever and ever. Sounds like hell to me, but I bet you the things that we are told are brilliant and fantastic. Come a new era of human society, they'll look back and they went, oh, they did what? So let's be open-minded really about what health means. And I guess with the inception really of the National Health 75 years old, that there's been a shift in the mindset gradually, which has been two-way between the medics and the patients, that our bodies are something that we hand over to the experts to do something to. Whereas if we think about it, for the eons of human health, giving birth, treating things, and our dying, all happened within the home, within the village environs, and don't, let's not be silly. I'm not saying that it was all brilliant. I'm just saying those understandings and our engagement with those things were familiar and not something to be outsourced. Because I think once we outsource things and become frightened, then we don't necessarily think clearly, and we become malleable to other people's opinions and, dare I say it, agendas. And within all of that, I'm a great advocate, as was my husband, who was a doctor, who one of our mottos was, your health is in your own hands, and never override your gut instincts about things. I've got many, I think I often say it, I have patients sitting in this clinic who have had something done unto them medically, and they go, do you know what, Kim, I knew at the time I shouldn't have let that happen because it wasn't right, and they didn't feel they had the voice or the courage to speak up in the moment. So anyway, that's the extreme in the kind of clinical setting. But over my herbal cup of tea, just want us to then ponder, what can we do when I say health is in our own hands? What can we do to change that around and recalibrate? Because I'm very much one for the complexity of life, the complexity of what it is to be human. It's when you raise children, as I have done, you realise what hard work it is creating someone into a good enough bit of humanity. We're all flawed. We all have problems. And what we hopefully do, if there's a mum and a dad around, that they're going to learn from us. We're going to give them, good modelling. And, as a mum and dad, we're going to work out what our dynamic is as parents and what messaging we want to give our children. And because I have a medical mindset, and my husband was too when he was alive, I guess we were quite... we sang from the same hymn sheets, shall we say, on that one, in encouraging our children in their early days to eat well. Goes off the rails a bit for any of them, I think, in their teenage years. I have to confess, some of my children aren't doing so well at the moment, but it will change. So obviously what we do as parents, how we feed our children, the messaging we give them about them when they're ill, how we teach them that their bodies will feel poorly, but there's things that we can do to make them feel better. And then if we can access, again, that lineage, think of it as a golden thread that's got a bit interrupted, but it doesn't mean that you can't pick it up as a parent or a grandparent or as a friend. When someone's not well, you encourage them to go, well, not that we have to sort of ram our advice down each other's throats. We need to start with ourselves and be honest with ourselves about what we're doing with our diets and our food and our drink. And just say, have you thought, just kind of, that it might be something to do with your food that you have every day, or the fact that you stay up all night gaming or whatever. We're this whole totality of activity, really, that impacts our health. And I guess what I'm concerned about, as I witness this era that we live in, that medicine's becoming very technocratic, and bureaucratic. So rather than that human touch, and fine, if you like that very cold, clinical, mechanistic approach, then please, I'm not stopping you doing that. But for those of us who, when we are sick and vulnerable, or need to sort something out, yes, there's mechanical things, testing and certain things that are really can be helpful, but there's also, dare we say it, these words that have kind of got a bit censored out, are heart and soul issues. And sometimes it is a case of just sitting down with a cup of tea, slowing things down, reflecting and recalibrating, and feeling better orientated as to what you can do yourself around your health issues. So anyway, that's just a little seeding of some thoughts, because I am very concerned about, especially on the platform that I'm speaking on now. They've put out some new community guidelines about what can be said around health, and I may or may not, in the fullness of time, fall foul of their agenda. I don't know, but I'm very much for us holding on to that golden thread of our wisdom and of orientating towards what's good and truthful and beautiful, that serves humanity, serves us living better lives, serves our families and, the generations to come. So that's just a few of my reflections over some herb tea. So I hope that gives you something to think about. And if you've got any comments or thoughts on that'd be lovely to hear them in the comments section down below. But otherwise, look out for some more videos soon on the herbs, and all the best. Speak to you soon. Bye.